Welcome, welcome. It is Saturday night, and this is Alabama Matters. I am your co-host, Anthony McGinnis, and here, as always, is the other co-host, my brother Robert D. McGinnis, who is running for U.S. Senate of Alabama by write-in ballot. Of course, we all know by now that the election is November 8th. We've got a few months until then, so we're going to be on here every weekend and get his name out there as much as possible. Um, but having said that, about talking about write-in ballots, I found it interesting that on the last election between Doug Jones and Roy Moore, there were more write-in ballots than there were uh, uh, ballot votes that separated Doug Jones and Roy Moore. There were 22,000 write-in ballots, and only 21,000 that separated Roy Moore from Doug Jones. So that, to me, says that there is a really, really huge, big chance. There's a good chance that you can win this thing.
Yeah, I remember you was telling me about um, how a person can go in and they can put their name on the ballot, but they have to sign. They have to put the oval. They have to fill in the
They
oval.
have to fill in that oval.
You
If
know,
they forget it, it won't count.
so and my reasoning here is, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. My reasoning is that had there had been a third choice when Roy Moore ran and when Jones ran, Doug Jones would not have been elected.
Yeah, what I read about it, it just proved that 22,000 write-in ballots for fictional or dead people.
Right.
Fictional characters or dead people were on the write-in ballots. Had that actual been a real person, that person would have won the election. But at that time, I think it was 2017.
Now, one main reason I'm running is because I think that Alabama deserves to have a third choice.
Yes.
And the only way to do that in Alabama is to do it you can do it also by getting enough petitions signed to put your name on the ballot, but you can also do it by write-in ballot. And that's what I'm doing because I was just one person and I didn't have the resources to go around the state of Alabama and get literally thousands and thousands of signatures to put my name on the ballot. I just didn't have the resources to do it.
That's right.
And so I'm doing it this way. And now I've got my billboards and everything. I've been doing it since April. And I'm sure that people know my name. I know that they know they know my face too because our mom, actually met somebody. Says I saw his face. I know his name. So they know my face and name recognition because I've been doing this since April.
That's right.
So I'm thinking that the same thing is going to happen this time around.
I think so too because I like I said, I read some stories, some of them conflicting stories, but I read some stories that that you would have needed 50,000 plus signatures for a petition to put your name on the ballot, and then I read another story that said like 20,000. So I don't know what to believe there. There's just it just makes more sense for people just to write your name on it versus us going out there and trying to get 50,000 signatures.
That's the way I see it too.
If you can get 50,000 signatures, that means you can get 50,000 votes.
Exactly.
Right. And 50,000 votes on top of the advertising that you've been doing out there, that's a potential win.
I think so too. I think that first of all, let me just say that our country's in such bad shape that I felt like that it was I felt like that it was that I needed. It was my patriotic duty to give the people of Alabama a third choice.
Right.
Because our country is in such bad shape that Alabama doesn't need to rubber stamp somebody and put them in office because we're going to need somebody who's willing to have the backbone to stand up against opposition.
Right.
It's hard to do. Now, let me just Joe Manchin I have such an enormous amount of respect for him. He is a Democrat from West Virginia, but he's a conservative, and it's hard. It's hard to stand up to the ones who don't agree with you,
Yeah,
but it's even harder to stand up to your friends who don't agree with you.
that's true.
And that's what Mr. Manchin did. Had he had allowed, I'm talking about Mr. Manchin here, had he allowed the filibuster to be destroyed or done away with, then everybody that's in power right now they would have they would have stacked the deck in their favor. The Supreme Court would have been packed in their favor, and they would have done a voter registration reform that put everything in their favor. In other words, they never would have been voted out of office, and this country would go socialist.
That's right.
Okay, and it would be no more free America. The America would be whatever the Democrat liberals say the America is. And then let me give you an example of just a little bit. This one, I was watching Fox News,
Mm-hmm.
and this woman, she's an old, elderly woman. She had to be in her 70s. She's taking a shower, and there was a transgender person in there watching little girls in swimsuits. Well, she didn't. First of all, she didn't want to be showering with this transgender around her. Okay, and then she complained that he was in there not doing anything but watching these little girls in their swimsuits and everything.
Now, that's us right there.
And the YMCA, the woman, she complained to this person at the YMCA and says, "Hey, you need to do something about that." The YMCA person said, "Hey, that's discrimination. We're going to ban you for life from the YMCA." Excuse me, but that is not discrimination to complain about not wanting to be around somebody while you shower.
That's a genuine concern.
And it's not discrimination to complain that someone is watching little girls in their swimsuit. Discrimination is discrimination is when that person banned this elderly woman from the YMCA for making the complaint. Yeah, that's discrimination.
Yes, I agree.
That's discrimination.
I mean, because who is to say that this transgender person was just acting transgender just so they can get a peek in the girl's shower room?
And that's a valid point. That's a valid.
So I mean, they had no. So okay, so some guy dresses up as a woman, and he walks into a YMCA and goes into the locker room, women's locker room, and he's standing there just looking around. He, she, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Right.
That's
But let me push home the point that I'm making on this. The liberal left says it's discrimination to complain about a transgender.
It's talking about a double standard.
It's stupid.
It really is. That back when I would have never in my life, back in the 80s, think we would ever be talking about a situation like this.
Correct.
And if something like this back in the 80s or 90s would have ever happened, that dude would have been arrested.
Right. So let me further the point that I was making. Talking about the woman complaining about this transgender in her proximity while she's showering, an elderly woman, not wanting them to be. I understand her not being just not out. She's not comfortable with anybody being around her while they're showering. Ain't nothing wrong with that. No. It just happened to be a transgender.
Right.
Right. Well, now there's that person is trying to say that the woman is discriminating against the person for being transgender when the complaint was about her not wanting to be in the same room with him. Now, see, that's not discrimination. Now, here's my point. Now, our country is in such bad shape that we have got people in office who think like that.
Right.
Okay? Who think that if any person who is uncomfortable being around someone that's transgender or anything like that, they consider that to be discrimination. And I'm like, no.
Well, here's something even worse.
We need to get rid of that.
As time goes on, more and more people are going to get like that in government.
Mm-hmm.
The younger generations are going to get older and have this mindset of thinking that transgender people can go into locker rooms opposite of their gender into their locker rooms, and it's okay.
Yeah, and not only that, that the people that if there's people in there who don't like it, they can lump it, or get over it.
Oh, I'm fluid gender.
They
I can
don't
use
care.
whatever restroom I want.
They say
No.
they say it's discrimination if a person does not socially accept transgender, same sex marriage, same sex attraction. If they don't socially accept that and they complain about something, their complaint is discrimination. That is baloney.
Right.
Baloney.
Now,
the First Amendment says that we have a right to complain about things that we don't like and not have to suffer any consequences for it.
Now, don't get us wrong, folks. We're not talking about human rights. I will respect anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. I don't care what color they are. I don't care how they identify. They're human beings. But when you try to push your agenda into my life, even in a public area, now you're crossing the line.
That's right.
Now you're crossing the line.
We need to put people in office that is going to represent the people who elected them,
right,
and not be intimidated by someone calling them a racist or whatever they want to call them. They're going to say we need people who's going to say, but you know what? Alabama believes in God.
Yes.
And then we're going to have to represent what they think. That's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to represent what Alabama thinks. 1% of the entire population of America is LGBT. 1%. And then out of those, majority of them is between 18 and 30 years old. But if for some reason people will get into office, they'll elect them into office, and those people, those representatives will represent and push the agenda of the 1%, than the 99% or the 50% who elected them. There's something wrong with that.
Right.
There's something wrong with that.
And going back to that transgender person, I did watch a video of this lady, this older lady. She said she was gay, and she didn't come out. Back in the day when she was younger. But she did admit that she fought for gay rights, and she fought for this, she fought for that. And she went on to say that had she known the struggles that she would have put on everyday Americans because of the beliefs that she fought for back in the day, she wouldn't have done it. And I was like, wow.
Right.
Now that says a lot about the trouble this country is in when a gay woman fought for gay rights is saying, I wish I wouldn't have done it because of all the stuff that's going on. That says a lot.
Let me say this too. Just so that people can understand my perspective on this. People with a same-sex attraction have the same rights as anybody else does. But when you start going and giving people rights that do not exist, that's called favoritism.
Yeah, that's true.
And favoritism is a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
Because if favoritism is not equality,
no,
it's about promoting one society over another person over another person. Favoritism is wrong. But see, the whole point of the LGBT community is to get the community, society as a whole, to socially accept it as being normal.
Right.
It will never happen. It will never happen. They say, well, why is that? Because Alabama, at least in Alabama, believes in God.
Right.
And it was Jesus who said from the beginning it wasn't so. Right. In Matthew 19. Now he was talking about divorce in that area. Yeah. When he talking about that. But you can apply that to any argument, whether it be same-sex marriage or LGBT rights or whatever the situation might be. And if Jesus would have said from the beginning it wasn't so, it's not normal. In other words, divorce at his time was not normal. It's not of God.
Correct.
It's because God did not create divorce. He created male and female to be joined together in marriage for their entire life. And there was no such thing as divorce. But because of the hardness of their heart, Moses gave them this bill of divorcement. because they weren't going to follow God's law in the first place. Then Moses gave them a law saying, hey, you know what? Okay, we'll back off on that. No, you don't compromise God's viewpoint. You don't do that. And Alabama believes in God.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I know that because the number one search in Alabama on Google was about God. Okay? I am a blood bought child of God. But see, the reason I know that I can represent Alabama is because our convictions are the same.
Yes.
And I can put those aside. I can put my own convictions aside. And that means that I can represent Alabama's.
Yeah.
And I am not going to compromise that because I work for them.
That's right.
See what I'm saying?
That's right. That's what we need. We need people in office that work for the people of their state and not their own agendas, like we have right now in D.C. We got a building full of people just worried about themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
and they're worried. Look, I don't mean to say. I ain't even going to mention his name, but the Democrat nominee, I read it where he said a public servant shouldn't compromise his values, but it's necessary sometimes in order to get legislation or collaboration or cooperation so that things can get done. And I like that alone means that he shouldn't be a candidate because he thinks it's his values that he's compromising. It's not. It's Alabama's values that he's compromising. And if he had the integrity, he would not do that.
He would do what the citizens of Alabama tell him to do.
Exactly. That's the way it ought to be. When the person gets elected, they ought to make decisions that they think that the people who elected them would approve of. That's the way it ought to be.
That's right.
But they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
They'll go up there and they'll compromise for the sake of showing some kind of. Don't do that. You find something that you can agree on, and not without compromising your values, or not yours, but the people who elected you, their values. That's what you do. If nothing gets done, nothing gets done.
Exactly. If it becomes a stalemate, then so be it.
It becomes a stalemate.
So
but you don't compromise. You don't betray the people who elected you. That's a lack of integrity in itself.
Exactly. You got to stand up for the people that you represent. I mean, we are 50 separate states, but we might be one nation, but we are 50 separate states that represent our own.
That's right.
And we got to back each other in our state. We got to have each other's back. All for one for all.
I want to mention something that you told me earlier. I did not know this. I'm glad you told me that I've got. If I were to win it, first of all, I want to see if I've got this right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you tell me that they will not count? They will set them aside. They'll set the write-in ballots off to the side.
That's correct.
But they will keep a running tally of them.
Correct.
And then if that tally, if the total number of the write-in ballots is equal to or greater than the difference between the other two,
the first and second place, yeah,
then they will count those.
Right. Then they will go back and they will count the write-in ballots to see who got the most votes. Yes. if the write-in ballots tally is equal or greater than the two first place, the names on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah, if they're equal or greater than that, then they will go back and they will separate all the write-in ballots to see whose name's on them. Because the last election, folks, between Doug Jones and Roy Moore, there were 1,000 more write-in ballots than there were votes between Doug Jones and Roy Moore. Even though Doug Jones won the election, there were 1,000 more write-in ballots.
Than what Doug Jones got.
Yeah, than Doug Jones. The separation between Roy Moore and Doug Jones was 21,000. The write-in ballots were 22,000. But the people who didn't want to vote for neither one of those people, they put in
Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny or
fictional
something.
characters. You know, Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, SpongeBob. They even put in dead people's names like Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson.
Right.
You know, George Wallace. And instead of putting in fictional characters and dead people, we actually have a third choice here, folks.
And that's the whole point.
We actually have a third choice. You don't have to throw your vote away on a fictional character. And had somebody other than Doug Jones and Roy Moore, if we had a third choice, they would have got those 22,000 write-in ballots.
And they would have taken a lot of the votes that Doug Jones got. They would have taken a lot of them too.
Exactly. Exactly. So right there. I mean, even though candidates by write-in ballot don't win, I mean, it's pretty much slim to none. But it has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I read on 2 occasions that it had happened. One in North Carolina, it happened, and once in Alaska, it happened. The one in North Carolina, the guy, it was 1954, and Strom something, I can't remember his last name.
Thurman?
That's it. Yeah. Strom
Thurman.
That's it was him. He during his campaign, he said, I will resign in 2 years, but I will give my state 2 years to figure out who they want to vote for to replace me. And so, sure enough, 2 years later, he resigned, but he turned around and put his name on the ballot. He didn't run as a write-in. He went and turned around and put his name on the ballot, and they reelected him. For real, I mean, like actual from the ballot standpoint instead of a write-in. And then he's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, senator to ever hold office after he got elected that second time.
Right.
I think he was in office at 100 or 101, 102, somewhere up in there, when he retired from the Senate. And I was like, that's just amazing. He initially got it by write-in ballot. Then he got elected again 2 years later. Mm-hmm. And then he was 100 years old when he retired. I was like, that's just amazing. I mean, I know the odds of that are slim, but still, it just shows to go. And plus, the last election between Doug Jones and Roy Moore, with the write-in ballots being more than Doug Jones votes, it can be done.
Right. I'm thinking that there's going to be people who don't want to vote for Katie Britt.
Exactly.
And there's going to be people who don't want to vote Democrat. So I felt like that it was my duty as an American, as an Alabama, to at least put my name out there as a third choice to let the Alabama residents decide for themselves if they, okay, you got Katie Britt, you got the Democratic one, and now you got me.
Right.
So now you're not going to rubber stamp this anymore because you've actually got a third choice.
Exactly.
Now, I think that's what happened with Doug Jones and Roy Moore is that they didn't want to vote for Roy Moore, so everybody voted for Doug Jones.
Yeah, they done a smear campaign on Roy Moore, so they're like, you know what? We don't want Doug Jones either, so I'm going to put down Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, that was them.
Yeah.
And the other one said, well, I don't want to just I don't want to just throw my vote away, so I'm just going to go ahead and vote for Doug Jones because I am not voting for Roy Moore.
Right.
And I'm thinking that this country is in such bad shape that Alabama can be a part of the solution by electing me. And they say, what makes you so special? And I'm like,
it's not like that, folks.
It's not.
It's not like that.
But there's going to be people who says, well, who does he think he is? Is he supposed to be the Lone Ranger with a white cap? No. The only reason I'm running is because I know that I can do the job,
right? And
I know who the boss is if they elect me. I know that I can do the job because I've been a public servant for a good 10 years at the local level. Right. And I ain't talking about governor, mayor, and all that stuff. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking actually eye to eye,
hands on with the public.
Yeah. as a as a housing authority investigator, as a supervisor at a restitution center that's with the Mississippi Department of Corrections, but it's not prison. It's working with the public. So the judges will send the violators who violate the law to pay off fines, but it's
Right.
under the Department of Corrections.
They
And
get to leave, go to work,
Yeah.
come back,
Exactly.
do their, pay their fines back.
So I've got all kind of experience as far as working with the public, and I understand how the public thinks. And being a husband and a father myself, know what's important to the family
Right.
and what it's going to take in order to keep the family relevant. Because at one time you didn't have cell phones at the table when you ate dinner. You didn't do that. Now
That's
they don't
right.
even eat dinner at the table.
That's right.
And that's if they have both parents in the house,
Yeah.
which most of the time they don't. So the family unit has been broken down, and we're going to have to get back to that, folks, because that is where America is right now. The family structure has been broken down, and not only has it been broken down, they're wanting to redefine it.
And ever since the families have been struggling with one parent households, that one parent has been relying more and more on the government to support them.
That's sad. That's sad.
And that's just the plain out truth.
Yeah.
Ever since it, ever since it started getting worse and worse about having one parent in the household, the more help they need from the outside.
Right.
If they don't get it from friends or family, they have to get it from
But
somewhere.
See,
and then that puts more strain on our government.
That's what socialism is all about.
Exactly.
Government control.
Exactly. They want us dependent on them.
Correct.
That way they can control us.
Right.
I guarantee you, if we become a socialist country, the first thing they're going to get rid of is our guns.
Sure. Trying to do it now.
But I will have to tell you, I'm telling you, if they did go that route, they would have a fight on their hands.
Yeah.
They would have a fight on their hands. Come and get my gun. You can have my gun when you can pry it out of my cold dead hands.
And there's a lot of people that feel that way. The government has got to be able to the government has to fear or at least respect the authority of the people to self-govern. They've got to. They cannot see themselves as lords over the people who elected them. You can't do that and stay free in this country.
Exactly.
But see, I'm glad you brought something up because I have mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again because I believe it'll work. This country has become too dependent on government benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it used to be that the gold standard was how you determined how valuable the dollar was worth, how strong the dollar was worth.
That's right.
Richard Nixon came and took it off of the gold standard and put it on the GDP, which is the gross domestic product. Well, now we're competing with foreign nations over the gross domestic product because our export versus our imports want to determine our dollar value.
Right. And when we're competing against countries that pay their employees just nothing compared to what we make.
Right.
We can't keep up with it.
But see, there's a solution. I think there's a solution. We'll have to regroup on our thinking on this a little bit, but we can use immigration to make America self-sufficient again.
Yeah.
And immigration is a big issue.
Oh, exactly.
They're pouring over the borders. They don't want. See, here's what the deal is. They think that I say liberals who. They think that if a person comes over into this country and they have a baby on this soil, on American soil, that baby automatically becomes a U.S. citizen, which later on becomes a voter.
Right.
Okay? That's not the way it works because the American Indian is native to this country. They were born on this soil even before the U.S. government was formed, and they never had birthright citizenship. And now they're trying to say, liberals, I'm going to make sure everybody understands that Not conservatives, but liberals think that foreign nationals can come to this soil, have a baby on American
And
soil,
then their child
and
becomes a citizen.
when the North American Indians never, who is native to this country, could never have birthright citizenship.
Exactly.
Never. So don't give me that bullcrap that a foreign national can come here and do that, and a native who's native to this soil never could do that. Don't give me that lie.
Yeah, no.
Don't give me that lie.
And apparently with the American natives, just stick them all on a reservation and say, "Here, this is yours." Hey, there you go.
Right.
This is all your. Now, if we tried that with immigrants coming over the border,
right?
Right. You talking about World War III?
Right. See, here's my thoughts on the matter as far as immigration goes. First of all, they can't come over here. Immigrants, they can't break into this country. They can't vote. Person who's in this country illegally cannot become a U.S. citizen until they leave and come back. That's a fact. Then the ones that are here, this is there's only so many green cards that you can give out. The right to work here.
Oh yeah.
So if they're going to be letting them come into this country, they've already given them money for health care. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
They even, in some cases, they give them money to start their own business.
Well, so here's the deal. Here's the deal. You want to bring them in? There's only so many green cards that you can give them. So the people that are coming into this country and they got their notice to appear, house them.
Yeah.
Give them education.
Yeah.
Give them health care. But they're going to have to work. If they're going to stay in this country, they're going to have to work. And they will not see any money. They will not get a paycheck. They are working for their room and board. They're working for the food that they're being provided. They're working for the food, for the clothes that they're given. They're working for the health care, the money that's already been given to them. And 22% of that money is going to go back into disability insurance, Social Security.
Right. Just retirement.
Because in 12 years, the fund's going to be depleted, and the only thing that's funding it is the payroll income tax. And guess what they're saying? Oh, but folks, this is what it's on the website. I read it. They're basically saying, oh, folks, don't worry. You still got 78% of your check. Pardon me? I ain't making it now.
And plus, and on top of that, less than half the country is working.
And that's my point. That's my point. So if we put these people to work, if we put the people waiting on their notice to appear, we put them to work while they're here. They work for their room and board, their clothes, everything that they got. They work for it, but they don't get that money. That money is used to pay for that room and board. That money is paid to. All right. Now, what happens? They produce. The GDP comes up. They make product that there is no demand for. But the money flow goes back into the cycle cash flow.
Yeah.
So now people have got money to buy products that there's no demand for, and the price for producing it comes straight down. Inflation comes straight down.
I know
and your livelihood goes straight up. All because we've got immigrants waiting on a notice to appear that are working not only to take care of themselves, but also to help provide for U.S. Americans who have a right to Social Security.
I know what it means to work for what you have. Mm-hmm. I mean, back in December, I probably shouldn't be talking about this because I hadn't went to court yet. But back in December, I had a dump truck crash into my house and hitting me while I was asleep in bed. And it flung me out of my bedroom into my living room, which was a good 30 feet, breaking a vertebrae in half. 50% of that vertebrae is gone. The one above it is fractured, the one below it is fractured, and I got 2 ruptured discs in my lower back. And I've been out of work since December, and you've helped me ever since, and I appreciate it, and I will repay you.
You never repaid me.
But my point is, after 7 months of being out of work, I get to go back to work tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Even though I have a broken back, I have a bad back. Mm-hmm. But I am excited to go back to work. I'm excited to get out there and earn my way. I brought myself back with your help, with my wife's help, with Mama's help, work my way back to get healthy so I can return to work and not sit on my butt just trying to draw a check off the government.
Mhm.
That's not me. That's not. I'm an American. I'm
See,
a worker.
There are a lot of people that are like that, and because I was confused. I was watching on the news where they said, "Oh, 100,000 jobs had been added back to the economy last month," and also it's confusing that the unemployment benefit applications are going up. I'm like, pardon me. How is it that you're adding jobs, but the unemployment benefit applications are going up at the same time? That doesn't make sense to
Yeah,
me.
see, that's my point. People are gotten
Lazy.
they gotten lazy ever since this pandemic happened.
Right.
They don't want to go back to work. I got COVID too. I almost died from it.
Right.
A month before the dump truck hit me, I had caught COVID and was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks.
Right.
That first week, I almost died.
Right.
And then, as I was recovering from the dump truck accident or crash, I don't think anything's an accident, crash, I got COVID again. But I'm not going to let that stop me from going back to work.
Right.
I'm not.
Well, see, I'm thinking if the American people have done gotten lazy, which it looks like that they have because the applications for unemployment going up, and at the same time the jobs are going up, which they're not being filled. That means that we're going to have to rely on immigration to fill in that gap.
That's right.
Okay.
If they want to come over here and they want to work. They want to be in this country. They're going to have to work for it.
They're going to have to work for it. And that's a very good point. See, because look, slavery, they were brought over here against their will.
Yeah.
And they earned their right to be here in this country.
They definitely did.
They earned their right to be here. Matter of fact, the Irish, they come over here because of famine, this, that, and the other. They earned their right to be here.
They got ran out of their country. Some of them. Most of them did.
Yeah. My point here is that we've earned our right to be here. No one deserves the right to be here. Just because they were brought over here against their will doesn't give them a right to be here. You earn your right to be here. The only people who have a right to be in this country is the North American Native Indians.
That's right.
Because they were here before the U.S.
government.
They were born here. They have a right to be here without having to earn their right to be here.
Right.
We came here.
Yeah.
And people are coming here on their own. No one's making them stay. See what I'm saying?
That's right.
That means that they're going to have to earn their right to be in this country. And if they're going to earn their right to be in this country, they're going to do it by helping support those who have come before them. They're going to make sure that there's something's there for them to retire to.
That is exactly right. All the money that I paid into taxes and to the government it goes towards the people who have retired before me.
Yep.
And the people who work after me when I retire should do me the same way.
Same way.
Same way. They pay into their taxes. They pay into the government, and then I get to retire at my retirement age, and then they do their part. I've done my part. The kids say boomers done their part. You know,
they've earned their right to be here.
Earned their right
to be here. It's the way it's got to be.
But I'm telling you, ain't no dump truck gonna slow me down.
Now I want to shift gears for just a second, because they just passed this so-called Inflation Reductions Act. They call it the Inflation Reductions Act. And I'm like, how do you reduce inflation by adding 78,000 IRS agents to the task force? How do you do that? So it sounds like to me that you're trying to take money out of the economy, which is going to cause inflation to go up.
Right. Okay.
But on the second to that, on another extended to that, they put, what was it, $1.3 trillion, I think it was, or something like that, towards climate change. Climate change is not man-made.
It's so ridiculous.
It's not man-made.
An excuse to spend money.
That's it. Which is inflation. It increases inflation. Look, climate change, they say, hey, climate change is real. I'm not going to argue that point. My point is it's not man-made, and what we do contribute to it is insignificant to the amount that's naturally put into the atmosphere. Insignificant.
They are wasting our money on that crap.
You know what they're doing? They're borrowing against future GDP.
There you go.
They're borrowing against future gross domestic product. They're stealing from
instead of that money going in my pocket after I retire, it's going to have to go back to pay back the money that I borrowed.
Yeah, it's going to have to work off.
Oh, that makes me so.
It's going to have to work it off.
That makes me so.
And from my understanding, that the government stole $2,000 trillion out of the Social Security fund, and they will not even pay interest on paying it back.
Thanks a lot, Nixon.
You know, and then people who make I think it was 188,000 a year don't even pay payroll income tax that goes to support Social Security. Here's my point on this. Once you borrow against future GDP, you should have to pay it back.
Thank you.
It ought to have its own tax for that.
Exactly.
Not on payroll income tax. It ought to have its own tax.
Somebody else shouldn't have to work to pay it back for them.
No, you start paying it back now.
No. You borrow that money, you put that money out there, you pay it back.
That's
your debt. That's not the future's debt.
And
that's your debt.
And it's got nothing to do with, well, we're not going to use it. I make too much money, but you borrowed against it.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying? You don't borrow money and then expect somebody else to pay it back for you.
Like we were talking earlier about the car industry bailout. How Chrysler, they pocketed all their CEOs that the government just threw money at them so they wouldn't close down. Chrysler, they just pocketed all the money and closed down anyway. Chrysler just boom, took the money and run.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Seriously, they laid off all those workers. It was like,
that should be
gone.
That should be prison time.
They should. That's embezzlement.
That's embezzlement. That should be.
But they just took the money, shut down, and took off.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were going under, they were drowning. So was Ford. Ford Company, they didn't take any bailout money. They just said, no, we'll take care of our own. We got this. And that's why I respect Ford. I respect the crap out of Ford because they like, no, we don't want your money.
But see, that's what bailouts do. They give money for a certain cause, and then it's not used for that cause.
Exactly.
And then future generations has to work it off. They have to work it off.
Exactly.
So it always comes, thanks to President Nixon, the value of the dollar always comes back to labor.
Yes.
And production.
And when you have pandemics, when they shut down the country because people are scared to get sick, that is going to make the value of the dollar go way down because people do not want to go back to work. They are so spoiled from working from home now.
Right.
Their companies are saying, okay, it's time to come back. It's time. No, we don't want to. We don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, they got lazy.
Come back on now. So I'm kind of changing the perspective a little bit and saying, hey, you know what? Let's get the United States back, first of all, to be fuel independent, energy independent again. And not only that, get our economy to be independent.
Talking about energy. And they building all these electric cars, all these battery-powered cars that only takes a drop of gas to run on. I read this article that the lifetime of those electric vehicles use more oil than a gas-powered vehicle.
Exactly.
Over its lifetime. Now, I ain't talking about like if you're driving one trip.
But see, that's the narrow-mindedness of liberalism. Yeah. That's the narrow-mindedness of it. It makes no sense. It makes no common sense. But that's what they want, and it doesn't matter what the price tag is.
Right.
Well, you know what the price tag is? The price tag is generations after generations of people paying back that money, paying back that was borrowed against their work. I don't appreciate somebody saying, hey, don't worry about it. Robert will work it off. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
You're going to tell them that I will work it off? You're going to obligate my labor so that you can get what you want? That's what you want? That's what Congress is doing with all these trillions of dollars of borrowing. Is generations down the line is going to have to work off that debt. They're going to have to work it off. And let me tell you something else. They're sneaky low down. These people are. The federal government will go in. They will print up all this money, which means that you pour more money into the economy, it makes the dollar worth less. Which means if it's less, if it's worth less, then it takes more to buy something with it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But what they'll do is they'll inflate all this like they're inflating a tire, and then they'll put IRS agents into the IRS, and they will suck all that money that they printed up
back into
back,
the government.
back into the government and make generations of people down the line pay the debt off with their own labor.
I heard they hired like 80,000 IRS agents or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. So they're low down. It's just another way of embezzling money and putting the money where they want to and borrow against the GDP of future generations. They are so scumbags. They are such scumbags. But hey, you know what? You know what? Alabama's got a choice here.
Yep.
In November.
That's right.
My name is out there on the billboards, and I'm saying, hey, I know what's going on here, folks. And I'm not going to be a part of the problem. I'm going to be a part of the solution, and I'm going to be watching your back.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it's all on them. It depends on whether Alabama is going to say, hey, you know what? I don't know much about this person, but I do know that I don't want Katie Britt, or I do know that I don't want to vote Democrat, so I'm going to vote for this guy.
Yeah, and don't worry about Bugs Bunny or SpongeBob.
Right.
That write-in ballot, we actually have a third candidate now.
Now, I said all that to say this. I have the insight to do this job. I have the tenacity to do it.
There you go right there. That's it.
I have the tenacity to do it because when I go up there, I will be friendly. I will be a Southern gentleman, but I am not there to play nice.
There you go.
I'm not. I am there to represent the people who sent me there to say, hey, we're not putting up with it anymore. We're not doing it. That's what they would be sending me up there. Katie Britt don't have the tenacity to do that. I'm so sorry. Matter of fact, she got most of her training under Richard Shelby, which means that she's going to still do the things the way he did it.
Exactly.
I have a different viewpoint on that.
Oh, that's right. He retired, didn't he?
He's retired.
And that's why she's running.
She was his chief of staff. You don't think that she's going to... Now, I ain't saying that he didn't do a good job because he did. Okay? But you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. You cannot do that.
That's right.
You can't. And that's what she's going to do. Now, the one thing that she's got going in her favor is she is pretty. She is pretty. I'm telling you, she's pretty.
She is something to look at.
Yeah, she's pretty now. I'm just saying.
But we need more than a pretty face up there.
Yeah, but she's pretty.
we need more than a pretty face up there. We need somebody that will stand for Alabama values.
Yeah.
That's what we need. You know, it's just we like you said, you play nice, but you won't. If somebody gets in your way, that I've seen you do it. I've seen you do it. Somebody you get your sights set on something, and somebody gets in your way, you're gonna move them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna say, "Hey, that's that right over there behind you. That's mine."
Yeah,
you know,
and you're not keeping me from it.
Yeah,
this is the way it is. You know. And it's, I told growing up, it was like, look, you know what? There is a time to fight, and most of the time,
there's a time to fight and a time to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
That's it. And I'm willing to negotiate as long as they don't start calling me names and saying I'm a low down, good for nothing, bigot, homophobic. They said, I'm like, you're going to go sit down and you're going to shut up because you don't have the right to talk to me that way.
I was raised the same way. And folks, just to let you know that there's some years separation between us two. He's the second oldest brother of the three original brothers, and I'm the youngest that came 10, 11 years later. So there is a little bit of a generational gap, but being raised by the same parents, we have the same exact values.
You know that the eagle. You see it on the flags. You see the eagle that's got arrows in one hand, one claw, and it's got an olive branch in the other.
Right.
You ever seen that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, people have said what that means.
One means peace. The olive branch.
One means peace, and
the arrows
is ready for prepared for war, but desiring peace.
There you go.
Okay,
yeah, that's it.
In the South, if you grow up in the South, you would understand it better if somebody said, "Don't bring nothing, won't be nothing."
Right.
That's what that means. You got arrows in one hand, you got an olive branch in the other. It means don't bring nothing, won't be nothing.
And that's the way we were raised.
And that's the way America was raised. They tolerated some things, that they'll put up with, and when they don't have enough, enough is enough. Now America stands up and says, "We ain't putting up with that no more."
Exactly. I mean, in school, I stayed to myself. I was quiet. I just did my own thing. I didn't bother anybody. But as soon as somebody stepped up and touched me, they could run their mouth all they wanted. I did not care because I did not care about what they thought. But as soon as they laid a finger on me, oh, it was on.
Yeah.
It was on. The first time that ever happened to me, though, I went to Daddy and I asked him. Daddy asked me. He said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Well, this kid, he was blah 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 blah." And he says, "Well, what you gonna do about it?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Are you gonna stand there and take it?" And I said, "What am I supposed to do?" He said, "Stand up for yourself." So when that kid came back and started bullying me again, yeah, I'm not going to go into detail, but he missed work. He missed school for 2 weeks because of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, I had no more trouble.
Now, here's the deal. I've served in the United States Air Force as a nuclear weapons security specialist. I guarded priority A weapons. Had to have a secret clearance to do it. And see, the United States put trust in me to make sure that I would not only guard it, but I would guard it with my life. That I would keep someone else from trying to steal that and taking it and using it against Americans. That was a lot of trust that was put into me, to do that, Well, now we're fighting a different threat. And it's in Capitol Hill. And it's called liberalism.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what it's called. It's called liberalism.
Every great nation that this world has ever seen has fought in it. Like Rome, for example. It stood for 1,500 years and then all of a sudden just disappeared. That's because it disappeared from within.
From within.
It fell from within, not from outside forces. There wasn't a country in the world that could take on Rome.
Now, Senator Manchin, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, he is a conservative Democrat. He broke ranks. Now, not just one time. He's done it on several different occasions. He's broke ranks with his own party. But the one time that I want to bring up right now is when he broke ranks on some act called the People's Act or something like that. The Democrat Party, the liberal Democrat Party, was wanting to abolish the filibuster. Well, what that would mean is all that anything they wanted done would just be a simple majority. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what they were wanting to do? They were wanting to pack the Supreme Court with liberals. They was wanting to go to 13 instead of 9. You know what I'm saying? They were wanting to do a voter reform overhaul, and essentially what it would have done was it would have stacked the deck so that all the elections would have already automatically go to them, and there would be no challenge to it. This country would have become socialist. It would have become a single-party, totalitarian type socialist government, and Joe Manchin single-handedly stopped it from doing that. Single-handedly. I have got the greatest respect for him. Now, I am kind of disappointed that he would fall back in line after he stopped this country single-handedly. He's a hero. The man's a hero. He should be a decorated hero. He single-handedly stopped this country from being taken over and being a communist country single-handedly.
Right.
I have such respect for him.
I'm gonna have to look him up because
But he fell back in line. He went and fell back in line and sponsored trillions of dollars to put into the green new energy, renewable energy, when it's not man-made, climate change, when it's not man-made in the first place. So, yes, he's an American hero, but then after he did his job, he just went and fell back in line. And I'm like, you do not give up that kind of authority.
No.
It says not only you're not going to abolish the filibuster, you're not getting money for a lost cause.
And see, that's just it. They want to go up there and ride the desk. They don't want to rock the boat because they want to stay in office.
Yeah.
When you're in that kind of position, that kind of power, it's all or nothing.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
That's right. So I have an enormous amount of respect for Joe Manchin. I truly, truly do. But I wish that he would have stood his ground and says, we're not going to borrow money against other GDP, the future GDP, just because you want some electric car on the road.
Right.
You're not doing that. We're not going to give trillions and trillions of dollars for future gross domestic product simply because you think that we're the one that's causing climate change when we're not causing climate change. And the only way that you could even impact it is to create filters to filter out the air. You not reduce the carbon imprint, but put filters up there that the air can flow through and filter the air out. That is the only way you're going to reduce carbon.
And you said before about the scientists that said that as humanity, not just as one person, everybody's always talking about try to leave the smallest carbon footprint that you can.
Right.
As a whole of humanity, the carbon footprint is so minute.
It is. It's insignificant.
So insignificant. Thank you. And that's all. And they're throwing trillions and trillions of dollars at something that
it's a lost cause.
A waste of money.
Yeah, waste of money. Borrow. See, that's a lack of integrity to get money for something that you want to do now and expect somebody down the road to pay it back.
And yet they want to gripe about free health care. Hey, why don't you take the trillions of dollars that you're throwing at nothing, climate change, quote unquote, and put it towards people who don't have health care?
Thank you.
That right there will solve itself.
Yes, it will. Yeah. We need to get people like that. We need to only put people in office who have America's best interest at heart.
Thank you.
Yes. That's the only ones that need to be in there. And we need people in there like Joe Manchin, who when the time really does, where it really does matter, that he will stand up and says, you know what, I like you, but I don't like you that much. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do what's right for the American people instead of you trying to take over this country and tell them what they can and can't do.
If somebody who you put pressure on them, they don't crumble, they turn into a diamond.
Exactly.
They'll cut that glass.
Exactly. I have an enormous amount of respect for him. I do. I just wish, I'm disappointed that he just fell back in line.
Yeah.
I am.
I'm going to look him up because I really, you got me interested in that. But yeah, I mean, I think this show turned out pretty good. Now I appreciate everybody who turned in to listen to us. That's really cool. Thank y'all.
If you know somebody in Alabama, please let them know that I'm running because I don't know how far-reaching this is, but in Alabama, not only does every vote matter, every vote counts.
It definitely does.
And I need people's help to get the word out. Thank you so much. Robert D. McGinnis here. I'm going to turn it back over to my brother. All
right, folks. Like we said, we appreciate y'all tuning in and listening to us just going back and forth about issues that's going on with the country and just basically just getting stuff off our chest from time to time. I guess you can say we can kind of use this as a therapy session.
I guess so.
Yeah. But also, his a platform to become U.S. Senator. And that's where we need your help. We need you to download these broadcasts and send them to friends and family. Hopefully you have some down here in Alabama where we are. And help get his name out there so we can get somebody in office that will stand up for our beliefs and for our rights. We need your help. And that's just plain and simple. So thank you. We love you. Y'all have a great week and God bless. We will see y'all next weekend, Saturday night at 7:30. This has been Alabama Matters. I am Anthony McGinnis. And here always with me is my brother, Robert D. McGinnis. Have a great week.